is not.
Okay. So thank you all for joining us. This is a webinar about the new way that we're going to assess quality, which is through the Quality On-Site Provider Review, also known as COPPR because we like acronyms. So I am Jennifer Akers. I am the Training and Engagement Manager at Liberty for Bequas. And as the Quality On-Site Provider Review moves out of the pilot stage and into implementation, we want to ensure that you have information about the process. Jessica Harlan York has a conflict right now, but she will try and join us later. I'm not sure that that'll be possible, but you can always reach out to her through this email address. I have Janet Delahanty with me. She's the Executive Director for Liberty, Indiana for Bequas, and she, with the help of Bequas, created the Quality On-Site Provider Review, so she will be available to answer any questions you might have. She's also helping me out with the chat and the Q&A because Zoom likes to take over my entire screen when I do this. We are using a webinar platform for this, so it is actually telling me who joined through the system. So we do not have a sign-in sheet for this. This really is more of an informational webinar rather than a training. So, but we do have a record of who attended. I also have live transcription turned on for this. So if it would be helpful for you to see the subtitles, that is available to you. And then we're also recording this, and it'll be housed on the Bequas playlist on the FSSA YouTube channel if you'd like to revisit it at any point, or if you have individuals at your agency who are unable to join us for the live session. We will probably send out an announcement next week when that recording is available. It has to be processed and sent through communications, but it should be up, I would say, next week. We're going to hold most questions until the end, unless it's some sort of technical assistance type thing. So if you have a question and you don't want to forget it, you can go ahead and type it in the Q&A box so that you don't forget what it is, but we will wait and answer most of those at the end. And I do have our email addresses here in case you want to contact any of us with questions after the webinar. We all follow the same pattern of our first name dot last name at fssa.in.gov. You can also use the Bequas help, and they will direct you to the correct person if you're not sure who you should ask the question to. So in order to ensure the quality of home and community-based services individuals are receiving, the states created the Quality On-Site Provider Review, or the COPPR process. This new process includes an on-site review and evaluation of the quality of services being delivered to individuals receiving waiver services. While Bequas will continue to review compliance with key regulatory requirements that are part of the assurances to the Centers of Medicare and Medicaid Services, or CMS, like we will check employee background checks and staff training. Most of the insight will be captured through the inclusion of a person-centered review to include conversations with individuals and their families, observations, and a review of outcome data. This will also provide an opportunity for Bequas to identify best practice models among the waiver providers and provide technical assistance where opportunities for growth are identified. Part of the key regulatory requirements also include the Home and Community-Based Settings Rule, or sometimes now I see they're just calling it the HCBS rule. These requirements are designed to ensure that people with disabilities living in the community have access to the same kind of choice and control over their lives as those not receiving HBS funding. It also requires a person-centered approach, which demonstrates respect for the person and the dignity of all involved, seeking to discover, understand, and clearly describe the unique characteristics of the person, so that the person has control over the choices they make to achieve the life he or she desires and finds satisfying, has the same rights as society as a whole, is supported in achieving positive outcomes, is recognized and valued for their contributions to their communities, and is supported in a network of relationships, both natural and paid, within the desired community or neighborhood. When conducting the Quality On-Site Provider Review, we'll be talking to the provider and individuals about the systems they have in place to ensure the quality of the experiences that individuals receive. The HCBS settings rule also ensures certain rights and protections. Individuals receiving services are entitled to all of the same control and choice that we all have. This means making decisions. It means having control over personal schedules. This includes what time to get up and go to bed. It includes when and what to eat. It means choices about whom to live with and where. It means being able to fully use all areas of one's living space. It means having full access to one's possessions, money, and household items. All of us need privacy, dignity, respect, and freedom from coercion and restraint in order to maintain a high quality of life, well-being, and empowerment. Copper Conversations will seek to discover whether these rights are being protected or restricted. If the latter is true, then we'll look at modifications to specific requirements when an assessed need is documented in the individual's person-centered plan. You've heard the term person-centered a few times now, so let's look at what that means. Bequist believes that the individual receiving services and support should be in charge of what those look like. When delivering home and community-based supports, it's the individual who leads the development of a plan for those services by sharing what their vision of a good life is. Person-centered service plans should be strength-based, person-centered, and reflect integrated supports. When conducting the quality on-site provider review, we'll be asking the provider if their practices and thinking are person-centered and support the individuals to live their best lives. In assessing person-centered practices, we've organized the questions around the life course domains. Life domains are the different aspects and experiences of life that we all consider as we age and grow. Individuals should have opportunities for life experiences that build self-determination, social capital, economic sufficiency, and community inclusion. We'll be having conversations with individuals and their support staff and supervisors to see if individuals are being supported in these domains. Since some of you might be on the phone or a mobile device where the text is small, I'm going to read the domains and life stages on this slide if you're less familiar with them. So these are the things, the areas of their life that we'll be looking at. We'll be looking at a meaningful day in employment. So the things that they do every day, whether that's employment, volunteering, working on various skills, the community living of where they live, if they have access to the community and transportation, if they have home modifications that they need, safety and security, so whether there are emergency plans, that their rights are being protected, if there are any issues with those, healthy living, that they have access to their medical appointments, that their mental health is being addressed, that their behavior and developmental challenges are being addressed, wellness, nutrition, social and spirituality, if that's important to them, that they have the opportunity to build friendships and relationships, personal networks, participate in their faith community, and then citizenship and advocacy, that they are building valued social roles, making choices, setting goals, and understanding with rights come responsibilities, and that they're in charge of how their life is lived. And we do this across the life stages. So these may change and should change as you grow in age. So whether they're school age or transitioning to adulthood or aging, we'll still be looking at these, and obviously they'll be different depending on the stage of life and the individual. So we've changed the review process because we need an approach to assessment, planning, and coordination of services and supports that's focused on the individual's goals, needs, preferences, and values. The person should direct the development of the plan, which describes the life they want to live in their community, the things they want to do, people they want to see, activities they want to do, and the elements of their own version of a good life. Then the services and supports are coordinated across providers and systems to carry out the plan and should ensure fidelity with the person's vision. And then we cycle back to the individual to measure the quality of services and seek ways to improve.
I'm sorry, can I interrupt you for just a second, please?
Yeah.
For purposes of tracking questions and responding, it would be helpful that if you have a question that you would like for the panel to answer, if you could put that in the Q&A section, and then if you are having problems with accessing your computer, hearing, things such of that nature, if you could enter that in the chat section, it will make it a lot easier for us to track what you need support with. Thank you.
Thanks. Sorry, that's new for the way webinars work. So Q&A is for that, questions and answers. And if you could only use the chat for you're having something you need us to troubleshoot kind of right now, that would be helpful. And that's really only visible to Janet. So to look at the process and kind of what to expect, kind of a timeline here is on the screen. So the COPPER process will include a 2-day on-site review conducted by a quality reviewer. In the pilot stage, we've had 2 reviewers. That still may be the case sometimes. They'll have conversations with individuals, support staff, supervisors, and management, and they'll also review key documents to ensure provider standards are being met. The wrap-up meeting will include an opportunity for the provider to request technical assistance and training regarding any of the assessment. We want to ensure that you have the tools you need to be successful. So we also hope that you'll let us brag about your best practices and share those with other providers so that they too can excel. We really want to build provider capacity across the state, and we know that we're stronger together. To assess the quality of services being delivered, we'll be looking at indicators, both for the organization and the individual. Through conversations with the individual and the provider, we'll ensure that the organization supports individual choice and control. Services should support self-determination and not create a barrier to it. Again, since the text might be small, I'm going to read the list of indicators. There's a system in place. We're going to look to see if there's a system in place to support individuals in minimizing risk while living their best possible lives. That there's a system in place to ensure individuals have the best possible health while promoting independence and choice. That the provider supports individuals to develop relationships outside of the service delivery system. That the provider supports self-advocacy and choice. The provider supports individuals to actively participate in scheduled team planning and meetings. And there are strategies in place to learn what's important to and for individuals and implement that strategy in the person-centered planning process. Through conversations with the individual and those that know them best, we'll be looking at additional indicators, and we want to ensure that they have choice, control, privacy, and freedoms. Again, since the text might be small, I'll read the list of indicators. The individual participates in the assessment process and prepares for their PCISP meetings in a way that communicates their wants, needs, and desires. The person has control over the services they want to receive and are currently receiving. The person knows and evaluates all of the choices as they relate to their services. The provider, as a member of the support team, uses their community contacts, relationships, experiences, and resources to contribute to supporting action toward an individual's preferred life. And the provider complies with the settings rule as it relates to facilitating individual choice. COPPER is designed to ensure a variety of voices and perspectives are heard. The most important voice is that of the individual. But we know we can learn more about the quality of services by also hearing from their support staff, supervisors, and management. We need to ensure the team's working effectively and in a coordinated manner, that services and supports meet the individual's needs and achieve their goals, ensure choice and control, and enhance community participation. We want to work with you to ensure that all people are empowered to live, love, learn, work, play, and pursue their dreams. We're in this together. If you need additional information, you can contact us at Bequist Help or the phone number that is on your screen. And we want to encourage you to stay connected. I think most of you probably learned about this opportunity through the DDARS newsletter, but I know the last time it was mentioned on a provider webinar, we had a huge uptick in subscriptions. So I'm not sure everyone is aware that that's available. If you go to the main DDARS website, there will be a link that you can click that gets you subscribed. That's where this announcement went out. That's where future information about COPPER and other trainings will go out. That's where the announcement when this recording is available will go out. So if you're not getting those and you want them directly, that's how you can do that. And we share a lot of that information also on the BEADS Facebook page. You see the logo there. That's what it'll look like when you're looking for it. It's actually, I think when I search, I put in Indiana Bureau of Developmental Disability Services, and that's that's how you can find it. You can see it there in the link, even though it's not clickable. That's what you're looking for. Jessica and Kathy frequently go live on Facebook at noon about every other week. I don't think they're scheduled this week, but they did last week, so you can get updates there. And we also send out reminders like information about heat advisory and things that you should be considering through the Facebook page. So it really is a source of information that's maybe not as official as the DDARS newsletter, but is still stuff that would really help you support individuals to live their best life. So if you're not getting that, we encourage you to do so. So we are now at questions, and I am going to try and help Janet navigate through these. If we do not get to all of them, because we did have 2 of these going on at the same time, we will send out a Q&A after this of some of them if we weren't able to get to them. Or again, because this is a webinar platform, I do have who was here and what questions they asked. I'm not sure it tells me that in the chat, but again, if you do it in the Q&A, I know. So when we did this for families, if we weren't able to get to the question, I was able to reach out to them afterwards. And you can always, I'll go back because you don't really need the question page to our emails. So if you need to get to any of us, you can do that. So Janet, do you want to go through some of the questions?
Sure. So I'm going to start with, we're getting a variety of questions coming in. Some are questions that are related to the copper process itself, and then others are questions related to challenges that you may have with certain individuals. So I'm going to start with the questions related to the process. So the first question is, will the individual have a right to refuse participation? And if so, what are the next steps? Certainly we believe in choice for individuals. So yes, people will have the option to refuse participation. When we go in to determine what the sample is, that will be done in collaboration with the provider. We're usually looking at 2 people per service. We will ask you to pick one person. So you get to say, we think this would be a great person to interview, great talk with, and then we will pick one person. We ask that kind of as you're doing this, that you maybe think about people who have created some challenges for you, because we really are there to help. So sometimes getting another set of eyes on a situation will in the end be very helpful to you. One thing that we have learned is oftentimes when we select somebody, the provider will say, oh, that person will never talk to you. So in that case, what we like to do is say, well, let us try. And if they don't want to talk to us, then we certainly will not force it and we'll select another person. But more times than not, I have done this similar work in other states for the past 12 years. And it's really funny because I have never had somebody who a provider has said, oh, that person won't talk to you, actually turn me away. And in many of those cases, those are the folks who end up talking to me the longest. So no, people will not be forced to participate. The next question, when you say 2-day on-site review for an agency that has multiple offices within the state, will you be visiting all locations or just one location? In that situation, we're going to look at how the organization functions. If it's an organization that has one set of corporate structure, that has one set of QA activities, then we would view that as one provider, and we would randomly select what part of the state that we went to. If it is a provider that in essence has a corporate structure and then many small companies under that, then we would go visit each company separately. Okay. Someone has asked, how does the on-site provider review process affect companies that only provide behavior management services? So that's a really good question. And some of that we are still figuring out. The pilot was done with residential providers and day providers. We do want to look at providers of behavior management services. You will be looked at further down the road, and we're still looking at what types of questions, what types of information we want to gather. Having said that, I will tell you that really all of the questions are designed to be person-centered, to learn what you know about the individual and how you are supporting them to live their best life. Okay, how much notice will we have that we will be reviewed? The plan is that we will select providers by quarter. So for providers who are going to be reviewed October, November, December, we will know early in September who those providers are going to be, and we will be able to begin reaching out. Our standard expectation of us is that you receive at a minimum 2 weeks notice. And as I say that, I know some of you are probably freaking out thinking, well, that's not much time for us to get ready. There really isn't a need to get ready for us. This is not like CQL coming in, CARF coming in, even some of the other survey processes that BQuest BEADS has used in the past. We really are coming in to talk to people. One of the questions that we had the other day was, well, will you be reviewing our policies and procedures and documents? The general answer is no. I say that cautiously because there could be some examples where we want to. For example, if we're talking to an individual and they say, I'm not allowed to have visitors in my home. And then we go back and we ask the DSP, well, tell me about visitors. Can they have visitors in their home? Nope, they're not allowed to have visitors. Just absolute no. So then we go and we talk to the management staff, and they say, oh, that's just not right. People can have visitors whenever they want. It's even in our policy. Then in that situation, we would ask to see the policy so that we can confirm kind of, well, what the person told us and what the DSP told us doesn't really line up with what management thinks is going on. So we would confirm that, and then we would go back and say, you know, this is an opportunity for training. It looks like the individuals that you support, as well as the DSPs who support them, don't know or have forgotten that people can have visitors whenever they want. An example of where we might look at a document for an individual would be, you know, they're telling us, I've been telling my team for years that I want a job. They keep making me come to this day program. I don't want to come to this day program. I don't know why anyone won't listen to me. So then we might pull up the PCISP to see if the fact that the person wants a job is actually reflected in there. So there really is not a lot of getting ready for us that needs to occur. Someone is asking, what is the process for appealing any determination made by Liberty regarding a review? Well, hopefully you're not going to feel the need to appeal, because we see this very much as a collaborative effort. We're going to come in, we're going to talk to folks, you know, as I said, we're going to talk to the individual, we're going to talk to the DSP, we're going to talk to the management staff, we're going to see if everything is lined up. If we don't see that everything is lined up, we're going to help you figure out why. And so you will get a report that will say, yeah, we don't believe that the provider is really in tune with what's important to people. We're going to put on that report why we think that, and hopefully it won't be a surprise The intent is that before you leave, you know everything that we have found. And not only that, but also that we have started to put a plan in place to help you resolve those issues. You know, Jennifer on this call is our training and engagement manager. Jennifer joins during the process so that she is there as a resource. You get to meet her, and Jennifer is just really, really good. She will immediately start sending you resources to help address anything that we found. And sometimes it's not even what we find, but things that you bring up. You may say, this is an area of training that we just really need help with, and we will be able to hopefully provide you with those resources. So then we have a question: during the process, how are interviews with guests served conducted for out-of-home respite? We have individuals come from all over Indiana. No one lives here. They schedule on an as-needed basis and upon availability. You know, I think that's one of those things that we're just going to need to work out once we get there. We do have Zoom capabilities. We have found challenges with the Zoom capabilities, but we also don't know people. So we're going to rely on you to help us figure out what the best approach is to just kind of get it done and get it done well. What is the case manager's role, if any? So case managers are involved in the process. It's a little more static. And the reason why case managers need to be involved in the process is because they are a member of the team. And so as we talk to the individuals, we learn things about them. It may be necessary to pull in the case manager and get additional information. We think it's also important, as we work through this process, that we're able to give feedback to the case manager. So at the end of the process, the case manager will also receive a report. It will not be the exact same report that the provider receives, because they don't need all of that information. So, you know, we do see the case managers being very important in supporting individuals to live their best life. Therefore, they need to get the feedback that we are giving the provider. Okay, next question. If you give us a 2-week notice and it's close to the time that we will be going through accreditation, can we ask to be in another quarter or for a later month? Great question. We are actually going to choose providers based on when your accreditation date is. So generally what we are trying to do is not conduct a quality on-site provider review during the same year that you have accreditation. So as we are going through the list, deciding what providers we're going to see in a quarter, we will have your accreditation dates up. So for providers who have been selected for review in September, based on what we know, you do not have an accreditation date of 2022. For providers who will be selected to participate in October through December, I need to go through the accreditation list, and the hope is that anyone who has an accreditation in 2022 or 2023 will not be selected to participate in that quarter. So that is our ultimate goal. Okay, let's see. Sorry, guys, I'm getting lots of questions, which is good. It's just taking me a minute to kind of sort through and see which ones we can address. Okay, some of these I have already done. Does this apply to home care agencies? It only applies to home care agencies if they are providing services through waiver. What does the post-survey procedure look like? For example, will a corrective action plan be required? At this point, no. In general, there will not be a corrective action plan as such. The ultimate goal really is to find those areas where you are struggling and give you the support to fix them. So we do not have plans to have an official corrective action plan in place. We may continue to do follow-up with you to make sure that we are providing you with what you need to resolve any things that have, again, either been identified by us or by you. So if a provider is CARF certified and has presented their accreditation, will this survey be required? And the answer is yes. And, you know, we are very hesitant to use words such as survey, interviews, that sort of thing. We really do want people to see this as an opportunity for us to come in and talk. We have, as part of the pilot, we were very mindful of the fact that people go through CARF, they go through CQL, they go through JCO, and is this just another survey that is being thrown at us? The interesting thing that we found during part of the pilot was that providers were telling us this is very different than our accreditation process. I know initially there was some resistance to the whole process because it was being viewed as just another survey. And we have gotten really positive feedback from people who have been CARF accredited as well as CQL accredited. And some of those providers have actually had CARF surveyors on them and have seen value to the process. So yes, being accredited, being certified does not keep you from going through this process. What is the time frame to expect a report? We are looking at 10 to 14 days that you would receive a document from us outlining what we found, and not only what we found, but kind of how that whole follow-up conversation took place. How many people will come on site? Right now, we are looking at 2, maybe 3, depending on the size of the provider. And for a small provider, it could be 1. How often will we be reviewed? Once a year. We are looking, I'm sorry, the question was once a year. The answer is every 3 to 4 years. Okay, so is it an ongoing process? We hope so. We hope that, you know, every 4 years you look forward to a visit from us. I know that we will look forward to coming out and seeing how we have been able to support you in making positive changes if we find that, you know, changes need to be made. Someone is asking, will it generate penalties against a provider? The answer is the process itself will not generate penalties for a provider. If we are out there and just, you know, all of us are mandated reporters of abuse, neglect, and exploitation. If we are out there and we see anything that raises to a level of concern, you know, putting people in jeopardy, massive rights violations, that kind of stuff, we will have to act on those. And the process at that point would be to go ahead and initiate a complaint through the BQIS complaint process. I can tell you that in the 18 pilots that we did not find anything that concerned us to a point that we needed to initiate a complaint. So it does not take the place, I guess I'm not sure I understand the full question of, does this take the place of the state audit for providers, or will we still have an audit? You will still be required to go through the re-verification, because that looks at very different things than what we look at. So the re-verification process will still continue. Okay, so asking for clarification on the 2-day review. Are we there at the consumer's home for 2 days? No. So we come in for 2 days. The typical schedule is we arrive around 10 a.m. on the first day. We do an opening meeting with the management staff, just learn a little bit about your organization. That time frame during the pilots went anywhere from 10 minutes to, we had a provider who had prepared a presentation for us so that they could kind of showcase where they were at, and showcase what they viewed as their strengths. So, we are willing to do that. I think it was great. It gave us a real good idea of where the provider was at. And it also started to answer some of the organizational indicators for us. In other cases, the providers were just sitting there and they were waiting and ready for us to go forth. So we go out, we interview one individual. We always need to start with the individual because we want to take information that we learned from them and build on it. So the first conversation would take place with the individual. Those have varied in time anywhere from 15 minutes to an hour and a half. Just depends on how chatty they are. Then we meet with and our preference is always to talk to the individual in private. Certainly in some cases, they are not comfortable with that, which is fine. So we will meet with them with whoever they want present. And then we want to have a conversation with the DSP. So the conversation with the DSP really is to kind of build off of what we learned about the individual. So the individual told us that they have a job, they're successful in the job. So then we want to find out what role the DSP thinks they play in helping the person be successful in the job and how they have seen the individual grow in their job. And then we're going to go back and we're going to talk to the management staff and we're going to say, this person's really happy in their job. We talked to the DSP. They told us this is how they support the person in their job. And that's great. That may be the end of the conversation. It may be where the management staff say, oh, we really didn't know that person was working. And so then that becomes a topic of conversation. So kind of in my mind, for each individual that we are going to talk to, the whole process with talking to the individual, the support staff, probably runs about 3 to 4 hours. So we do 2 of those. Typically we do one the first day, one the second day, and then we have our follow-up looking at what systems does the provider have in place. That conversation with the management staff may take anywhere from 1 to 2 hours. And then we have to do the mandatory review of the personnel files and the criminal background checks. We try to give you the list of personnel files that we want to look at on the morning of the first day, to give you an opportunity to pull that information together, with the plan being that we would probably look at those documents the afternoon of the second day. Okay, some of the questions, and I apologize, I'm getting a lot of questions about the reapproval process, the recertification process, the verification process. People are using a lot of different words, and I don't want to give you incorrect information. So I am going to defer those questions. We will have Jessica and Shelley Thomas address those because, again, I don't want to give you bad information. Okay, so if you're a solo provider for recreation therapy services, is it the same process? It would be the same process, more than likely, fewer questions, but we would still come in, we would look at two individuals that you support, we would want to learn about them, we would want to learn about your involvement with them, and then see if there is anything, you know, that we can do to help support you. So someone is asking, will document review need to be available through Beach Portal, or will hard copy documentation need to be available? My belief is that if it is in a portal and I can find it, there's no reason to chop down a tree. Is it both for residential CIH and also FSW residential settings? It is for both, yes. Okay, I believe that I have worked my way through all of the questions related to process. Okay, another one came in. If the individual who's chosen is unable to communicate, would the guardian or representative also be interviewed? And will an individual who is able to verbally communicate always be chosen? So I have a couple of different thoughts about that. We want to make sure that the people who we interview are representing the total picture of individuals that the provider supports. So if you support people who are able to verbally communicate, we certainly would want one of them in the sample. If you support people who do not use words in their communication, you know, we believe that everyone communicates in some form or another. So the fact that they are not able to hold a conversation with us would certainly not exclude them from the process. What we would look at is kind of their reactions to things. In that particular situation, we might ask that the DSP participate in that part of the conversation. We certainly could include a guardian in that conversation if people thought that that was the best route to take. You know, in speaking with individuals who do not communicate verbally, we would be looking at their reactions. So maybe ask them, would you take us to your room and let us see how your room is decorated? Because one of the things that we're interested in is the individual's room decorated in a way that they like. So if they bring us into the room and they show us all of their Colts paraphernalia, then we're going to probably conclude that, and they have a smile on their face, we're going to probably conclude that they are a big fan of the Colts and they are excited that they have those things in their room. If they show us things related to Colts and they snarl, then we might want to probe a little deeper. You know, are they a Colts fan? Do they watch the games on TV? Do they get excited when they watch the games on TV? So I decided this morning I was not going to pick on broccoli and peas, because usually my example is if we ask somebody if they like broccoli and peas, they crunch up their nose, then that's probably an indication that they don't. But if we go into the kitchen and, you know, we're start talking about corn and potatoes and they get really excited, then that's probably an indication to us that they like corn and potatoes. And so we would follow up with the DSP to see if our hypothesis is correct. So, you know, we will do whatever we can to rely on whatever communication process the individual uses to collect the best information that we can. How about if you don't have anyone who can communicate? Well, I hopefully in my description, I just answered that I believe that everyone communicates in some way, and we would take what we were learning and verify it with a DSP, with a guardian, with a family member, with someone who knows that person very well. Is the process you're describing the same for a solo behavior management level 2 provider? I believe the answer to that question is yes, because it really is more about the individual and less about what category of provider you fall into. But I can double check that and make sure that I understand all of the parameters around, and my reason for saying this is because the question was written in a very specific way, a solo behavior management level 2 provider. So let me check on that and make sure, and we will get a response back to you. So I believe that the other questions, as I already said, I'm not going to answer the questions about verification and re-verification and certification because I don't want to give you an incorrect answer. And then there are a couple that are about rights. And so we're going to answer those individually because I don't want to open up a huge can of worms that we don't have time to get closed back up. So at this point, I think I have answered everything. Jennifer, did you have, oh, I'm sorry. Someone is asking if the individual is a minor, will the parent be allowed to interview with them? My initial thought is yes. We did not come across that situation in the pilot, so I will make sure that I have a good answer to that and that we are able to include the answer to that question in our process. So Jennifer, did you have anything that you wanted to add based on what I just answered?
I did answer in the Q&A. With you, they are using a variety of terms for other systems that are in place. Copper is specifically replacing the CERT. So if that's helpful to you in trying to figure out how this fits in with the other things that go on through Bequest and Beads, in the past, Liberty or the other quality provider would come through and look at a lot of paperwork and go through a checklist and that type of thing to look at some of the quality components. And that CERT process is being replaced with Copper. So that's the specific activity that's being replaced with Copper. So that might help with some of those questions. For the other ones, we can again check with Jessica, and the webinar platform that we're using should tell me who asked these questions so that we can get back with you later. And some of these will come up through the Copper too. As Janet said, I join the wrap-up meeting and I saw some questions about guardians, which we don't want to totally take over this conversation, but you do have a responsibility as a provider to follow the settings rule that ensures choice and control. And so we're really working on education with families and individuals too, so that they understand that. And so we actually have a training scheduled this year about that particular issue, that when you have that difference between what a guardian wants and the rules that you need to follow for the settings rule and how to navigate that process. I think a lot of it is really asking questions and finding out why they want the various restrictions, and then also helping them understand that there's a specific process now through the settings rule for restrictions that include modifications. So you have to really assess that there's an actual need for them and that they'll be time limited and that you'll revisit them. So that's part of my job as training and engagement, is to make sure everybody kind of gets on the same page about that and realizes that with every government program, there are rules, and these are the rules that are associated with if you receive waiver services, because CMS really wants to make sure that getting waiver services doesn't create barriers to you still having choice and control. That's not the way it's supposed to work. We're supposed to be here to support you in areas that you might have some needs, but I'm also a guardian of a child with multiple disabilities who used waiver services. So I totally understand where parents are coming from too, and it's a place of love. It's just helping them work through that process. And again, building that trust that some of these things are possible, maybe if they haven't considered them before. I saw somebody raise their hand again. If you have a question, if you could put it in the Q&A. Also, we have a training survey out right now. It went out as a DDARS announcement. I've gotten over 200 responses so far, but it will help us prioritize some of these things that you're asking about that would really be great as a broad training for everybody. But if you're running into some of these issues on a regular basis, you don't have to wait for Copper to reach out to me. So if you want resources before that, I'm a resource to you all the time. You don't have to wait for your Copper. You don't have to wait for a statewide training. You can just reach out to me if you'd like. Did anything else come in, Janet, that you feel like we need to answer?
Just real quick, I think we already addressed this, but I'll go ahead and address it again. So people are asking about guardian participation. Our hope would be that we would be able to talk to the individual by themselves, but we certainly, would not say that a guardian could not participate. And part of the reason for wanting to talk to the person by themselves is we really want to hear from their perspective how life is going. And I'm sure that each of you can, in your own life, think about a time where, boy, if my husband, if my child, if my partner, if somebody wasn't sitting next to me, I may say things differently than what I am saying them now. And so we just really want people to feel comfortable talking to us and giving us a good assessment of where their life is. And sometimes having a guardian sitting next to them makes them less likely to do that.
And it really is about the person. Just like your team meetings, the person is in charge, but if there are people they want there for their own comfort level, that's different than us automatically assuming that they should be there. We want them to have some choice in who's there. So if there's somebody that they're really comfortable with, that they feel they want to have there. And I also have, I'm not sharing it here because they're still in the pilot stage, but there will be some information sheets that you will get when you kind of get your notice that we're having the Copper, and it will have a sheet kind of for the DSPs and Qs and everybody else involved so that they kind of have a quick little overview of what the Copper is. So they don't have to watch this entire training, but they kind of have a quick little info sheet. And I have one that I've made for the individuals as well. And one of those is that they can refuse to be part of this. We'd love to talk to everybody, but if for some reason they do not want to participate in this, that they know that they can ask questions, they know that they can ultimately decide that they would prefer we talk to somebody else as well. And that is written in plain language with visual supports as well, so that hopefully it's in a way that they can understand. I think things have slowed down. Is there anything else, Janet, on your end?
We did have another question, and I think this is probably going to be the last question because we are just about out of time. What if our DSP is not available at the time of the meeting? We can do those interviews by phone. We certainly understand that sometimes the person who knows them best maybe an evening DSP and we're there during the day. So we have called people, and that has worked out pretty well for us as part of the pilot.
Okay. We are at time. If we did not get to your question, we will try and follow up with you. But again, you can also follow up with us. This recording will go out. I did have a question I answered in the Q&A about the slides. If you'd rather have the slides and not have to go through the whole recording, I'm happy to send those out so that you can have those. And there, this is an introduction. It has just been in the pilot stage, and now it's going live and being implemented. So if I would expect further information to be coming out through the DDARS listserv about the copper process. So I would look for that. I know some of you is like, I haven't heard much about this until now. And so that's because we've been in the pilot stage, but I anticipate that there will be a dedicated component of the Bequest website, which we are trying to update right now. All right. Thank you so much for joining us today. And we look forward to helping you empower individuals to live, love, learn, work, play, and pursue their dreams. Thank you for all that you do.